Come on, come here.
The rain poured down mercilessly on the rooftop of the Meridian Tower, 30 floors above the glittering city of Chicago. Michael Harrison stood at the edge, his expensive suit soaked through, water dripping from his dark hair as he stared down at the lights below that seemed to mock his failures. At 35, Michael had been the youngest CEO in his company's history when he took over Harrison Industries 3 years ago. Tonight he had just signed the papers that would dissolve the business his grandfather had built from nothing, taking with it the jobs of 400 employees and the dreams of a lifetime. The weight of responsibility, the crushing debt, and the knowledge that he had failed everyone who had believed in him pressed down on his shoulders like a physical force. He had come to the roof of his office building not with any clear intention, but simply because he needed to be somewhere that matched the emptiness he felt inside. That's when he heard it. A soft sob cutting through the sound of the rain. Michael turned, squinting through the downpour, and saw a figure huddled near the rooftop's edge about 20 feet away. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he realized it was a young woman in a light blue dress, her long brown hair plastered to her face by the rain. She was clearly pregnant, probably in her 3rd trimester, and she was sitting dangerously close to the ledge. Every thought of his own despair vanished instantly. Michael moved carefully toward her, his dress shoes slipping slightly on the wet concrete. "Hey," he called out gently, not wanting to startle her. "Are you okay?" The woman looked up, and Michael could see she was perhaps 25, with tear-streaked cheeks and eyes filled with a pain that rivaled his own. She placed a protective hand over her rounded belly. "Please don't come any closer," she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. "I don't want to hurt anyone else." Michael stopped, but didn't retreat. "I'm not going anywhere. What's your name?" "Sarah," she whispered. "Sarah Chen? I'm Michael. Sarah, I need you to know that whatever brought you up here tonight, whatever seems impossible right now, there are people who care about you and that baby." Sarah laughed bitterly. "No, there aren't. That's the problem." Michael could see she was shivering. Whether from cold or fear, he couldn't tell. He slowly removed his suit jacket, holding it out toward her. "Sarah, you're soaking wet and it's freezing up here. Can I at least give you my jacket?" "Why do you care?" Sarah asked, but she was looking at him with curiosity now instead of pure despair. "Because 20 minutes ago, I was standing in almost the exact same spot. Feeling like the world would be better off without me," Michael said honestly. "But seeing you here, knowing you need help, it reminded me that sometimes we're meant to save each other." Sarah studied his face, seeing something genuine in his eyes. "You were really going to—" "I don't know what I was going to do," Michael admitted. "I just know that tonight I lost everything I thought mattered and it felt like the end of the world. But right now, the only thing that matters is making sure you and your baby are safe." Slowly, Sarah accepted the jacket, pulling it around her shoulders. "I lost everything too. The father left when he found out about the baby. I got fired from my job last week because I've been too sick to work consistently. I'm being evicted tomorrow and I have nowhere to go." Michael felt his heart break for this young woman who was facing motherhood alone with no support system. "Sarah, have you eaten today?" She shook her head. "I haven't been able to keep much down, and I spent my last $20 on prenatal vitamins." "Okay, here's what we're going to do," Michael said, extending his hand toward her. "We're going to get off this roof, get you somewhere warm and dry, and figure out how to solve these problems one at a time. Will you trust me?" Sarah looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment. "Why would you help a stranger?" "Because sometimes strangers are exactly who we need," Michael replied. "And because you're not just a stranger, you're someone who stopped me from making the biggest mistake of my life." Carefully, Sarah took his hand and allowed him to help her to her feet. As they made their way to the roof access door, Michael wrapped his arm around her shoulders to steady her against the wind and rain. "I live a few blocks from here," Michael said as they descended in the elevator. "It's nothing fancy right now, but it's warm and dry. And I make a decent grilled cheese sandwich." "I couldn't impose like that," Sarah protested weakly. "Sarah, 3 hours ago, I was convinced that my life was over. Right now, helping you is the first thing that's made sense to me in months. You wouldn't be imposing. You'd be saving me. Over grilled cheese sandwiches and hot tea in Michael's modest apartment, their stories unfolded. Sarah had been a graphic designer at a small marketing firm, working her way through college at night to finish her business degree. The father of her baby was a co-worker who had seemed committed to their relationship until the pregnancy test showed 2 lines. He said he wasn't ready to be tied down. Sarah explained, unconsciously stroking her belly. Told me I was on my own and transferred to the company's West Coast office. Michael felt anger rise in his chest at the thought of someone abandoning Sarah and their child. What about your family? My parents died in a car accident when I was 22. I have an aunt in Portland, but we haven't spoken in years. I've been pretty much on my own since college. As the night wore on, Michael found himself sharing his own story. How he had inherited Harrison Industries from his grandfather, how he had tried to modernize and expand too quickly, and how a series of bad investments and economic downturns had culminated in tonight's bankruptcy filing. 400 people are going to lose their jobs because of my decisions, Michael said, staring into his tea. Families who depended on me to keep their livelihoods secure. But you tried, Sarah said quietly. You didn't give up until you had exhausted every option. That counts for something, does it? Michael asked. What good are good intentions when the result is the same? Sarah was quiet for a moment, then placed her hand over her stomach. This baby wasn't planned. The timing is terrible. I have no money, no job, no partner. By every logical measure, this is a disaster. But you know what I realized tonight? Michael waited for her to continue. Sometimes the most important things that happen to us aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones that force us to discover who we really are and what we're really capable of. Michael looked at this young woman who had been facing homelessness and single motherhood just hours ago and marveled at her wisdom. You're remarkable, you know that? Sarah smiled for the first time that evening. I'm terrified. But maybe being terrified and being remarkable aren't mutually exclusive. As dawn broke over the city, Michael made a decision that surprised even himself. Sarah, I have a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? I may have lost Harrison Industries, but I still have my business experience and contacts. You have graphic design skills and you're working on a business degree. What if we started something new together? Sarah stared at him. Started what? A consulting firm. Small business marketing and design. We could help other entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes I made while building something sustainable and meaningful. Michael, that's incredibly generous, but I'm about to have a baby. I can't be much of a business partner when I'm dealing with sleepless nights and diaper changes. That's exactly why it would work, Michael said earnestly. We'll build it to accommodate real life, not just the fantasy of perfect business conditions. Family-friendly hours, remote work options, the flexibility to handle whatever life throws at us. Over the following weeks, as they developed their business plan and Sarah grew larger with each passing day, their partnership evolved into something deeper. Michael accompanied Sarah to doctor's appointments, helped her find a comfortable apartment near his own, and discovered that caring for someone else gave his life a purpose he had never experienced. Sarah brought a creativity and fresh perspective to their business, planning that complemented Michael's experience and network. Their consulting firm, Phoenix Partners, began attracting clients even before their official launch. Phoenix, like rising from the ashes? Sarah had suggested when they were choosing a name. Exactly, Michael had replied. Sometimes you have to burn everything down before you can build something better. 6 months later, Michael stood in the waiting room of Northwestern Memorial Hospital, pacing anxiously as Sarah labored to bring their business partner into the world. Because that's what the baby had become to him. Not just Sarah's child, but a symbol of the new life they were all building together. When the nurse finally called him into the room, Michael found Sarah exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny girl with dark hair and perfect features. Michael, meet Elena, Sarah said softly. Elena Chen Harrison. Michael's eyes filled with tears. Harrison? I've been thinking about it for weeks, Sarah said. You saved both our lives that night on the roof. You gave us a future when we had none. I want her to carry your name, too. Michael gently touched the baby's tiny hand, overwhelmed by the magnitude of love he felt for this little family that had become his own. "She's perfect, Sarah. Absolutely perfect." "There's something else," Sarah said, looking nervous. "I know we've never talked about this directly, but Michael, somewhere along the way I fell in love with you. Not because you saved me, but because of who you are. Someone who puts other people's needs before his own. Who sees possibilities where others see only problems." Michael leaned down and kissed Sarah's forehead gently. "I fell in love with you the night we met when you showed me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about choosing hope when hope seems impossible." 3 years later, Phoenix Partners had grown into one of Chicago's most respected small business consulting firms. They specialized in helping entrepreneurs navigate challenges while maintaining work-life balance, and their unique approach had attracted attention from business journals and industry leaders. Michael and Sarah had married in a small ceremony when Elena was 18 months old, with their daughter serving as the world's youngest flower girl. They had since welcomed a son, David, and were expecting their third child, but every year on the anniversary of that rainy night, they returned to the rooftop of the Meridian Tower, now with Elena and David in tow, to remember how their love story began with two people who thought their lives were ending. "Mommy, why do we come up here every year?" Elena asked on her 4th birthday, looking out at the city lights that no longer seemed cold and distant, but warm and full of possibility. "Because this is where Daddy and I learned that sometimes when we think we're falling, we're actually flying," Sarah explained, holding her daughter close. Michael wrapped his arms around his family, remembering the broken man who had stood on this roof 4 years ago. That man could never have imagined that his greatest failure would lead to his greatest joy, or that saving someone else would be the key to saving himself. "Daddy," Elena said thoughtfully, "did you really used to be sad up here?" "Very sad, sweetheart," Michael replied honestly. "But that sadness led me to Mommy and you, so I'm grateful for it now." Elena nodded with the serious wisdom of a 4-year-old. "Sometimes sad things turn into happy things if you wait long enough." Michael and Sarah exchanged a look over their daughter's head, marveling at how this little girl, who had started as an unplanned pregnancy, had become the center of a family built on second chances and unexpected grace. As they headed back down to street level, Sarah took Michael's hand. "No regrets?" "Only one," Michael said, squeezing her fingers gently. "What's that?" "I wish I could go back and tell that broken man on the roof that the best part of his life was about to begin. That losing everything he thought mattered would lead him to everything that actually does matter." And as they walked through the Chicago streets toward home, their children's laughter echoing off the buildings around them, Michael realized that sometimes the most important rescue isn't pulling someone back from an edge. It's helping them discover that they were never really falling at all. They were just learning how to fly. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that our darkest moments can become the doorway to our greatest blessings, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to believe that tomorrow can be different from today. Subscribe for more stories about second chances and unexpected miracles, and let us know in the comments about a time when helping someone else ended up helping you too. Sometimes the story someone needs to hear is the one only you can tell.